we just received a very welcome afternoon rainstorm, which helped cool the temperatures down a little bit so it is a little more tolerable to be outside. It has been brutal this last month. I have not been able to get out here and garden quite as much as I was hoping to, and a lot of the plants really kicked into survival mode, but even still, lots of things are looking great. Some new things are in bloom, and we are going to go out and appreciate those things right now. Here in this section, the real star of this corner is the Glamour Girl Garden Phlox, which is looking super duper bright and showy. I've noticed quite a few little bumblebees are just recovering from the storm here, drying their wings. I did cut out the oriental lily foliage just to kind of create a little more opening, a little more air in here. The dahlia that's blooming is Beep Beep. This is not a great example of what this looks like in full bloom. It's not quite open, but I did take a picture of probably this one over here that's completely wilted now. I'll see if I can find a picture and put it on the screen. And the Kismet raspberries still look decent. They're definitely not as, vibrant as they were about a month ago. But for me, these coneflowers are what I consider a one and done bloomer. I get one really nice big show, and all their secondary blooms just are very small. They're not as intense. So unfortunately, the color will just slowly fade, and this little stand will be pretty much done. Some butterfly weeds still blooming. This particular lantana that I added a little bit later is definitely picking up the pace a lot. And the veranda cream rose is putting on a third little growth spurt here, of course getting attacked by the Japanese beetles as usual. But I'm very impressed with this rose so far. It has been growing and blooming very nicely, considering it's its first year in the ground here. On this side, of course, we still have the sombrero Sangarita coneflowers, which are still looking great. They hold their color really well. Delphiniums, their initial blooms faded already, but we are getting a couple just little bloom stalks coming up for a second show. And everything over here is basically just holding on for dear life. Unfortunately, the liatris is pretty much completely out of bloom. There are a few other little pieces behind me that are still hanging on to some blooms and just coming into bloom, but for the most part they are done. And now the goldfinch can come in and enjoy the seeds. Over here we have the Jordan Japanese maple, which this is its second year in the ground, and it has succumbed to the summer sunburn or sun scorch on these very light colored leaves. This is rated for full sun as far as I know. I'm not really sure. I think sometimes those specs on the tags are specific to what region you're in. So like if you're north of me, like if you're in Pennsylvania and New York, you might get away with full sun, but I think the farther south you go, full sun doesn't mean full sun. It might mean a little more protection from afternoon sun or dappled shade or something like that. So anyway, I don't know if this tree is really truly happy here, because this is not a good look for it. I wish it was still yellow and beautiful. And I did consider moving this last year. I'm definitely on the fence about it again this year. If we could probably find a better place to put this that it can really thrive and show beautiful color all year long, I would be very happy with that. Another concern with this particular area is, as you can maybe see a little bit, we have a water drainage issue, big time. I'm literally stepping in like mush right now. You know, we get rain or the sprinklers and this just is not draining very well. And I think I have quite a few plants in this particular bed that are not loving that, including the Japanese maple, definitely that dianthus right there, artemisia, the rose, that particular hydrangea that's closest to us. Look how yellow the leaves are compared to the two in front of it. I don't think these cone flowers are really loving it. See what I mean? So I might need to play around with the design of this bed a little bit, find some new places for some new things. I am a believer that there is a right plant for the right place. My focus is not to amend the soil so much as it is to find a plant that can handle the situations that I have. I find it much easier to do it that way. Anyway, the ageratum look okay over here. I have other areas where they're looking better. I've cut back the Caradonna salvia just to allow the calamintha to come through. This isn't looking as full as I would have thought it would be by now. That's okay. I did tuck in a couple more annuals, just some vincas. There's also some small stands of zinnias just to fill the gaps in with some color. I had some deer come through and take every single bud off of my mighty chestnut and also the ruby spider in the backyard, which was super disappointing, but you know, that's all they took. They didn't take any hydrangeas or anything else, and that's a lesson learned for me. I do need to keep up on the liquid fence. The alliums are still looking really amazing. Usually these would be covered in pollinators, but I think the rain scared everybody away. Some more ageratum. And of course, you guys know I'm gonna talk about the Joe Pye weed. This thing is probably at least 6 feet tall now, which is bananas. Because last year, I think it topped out like right about where these guys are. When I'm standing here on the driveway, yes, this bed is elevated just a little bit, maybe 8 inches or so. But that is well above eye level for me, and I am 6 feet too. But even though it has exceeded its height, I really appreciate that it's standing tall. Look how great it looks. It's not flopping, it's not reaching, it's just right there. It's beautiful, and I believe Joe Pye weed is a plant that does like wet feet. So this may be a great plant that I could transplant over there to where it's a little more soggy. And who knows, maybe next year it'll be 8 feet tall. Firelight tidbits, finally looking pretty good. I was hoping for a little more blooms. This one in the back here is looking pretty good. I was hoping they'd all have that many blooms. But again, this is their first year in the ground. I got them in little, I think they were a little bigger than a quart size. They might have been a gallon. They weren't big. They were pretty small specimens when I received them. But they're doing great. A couple more dahlias in here and grow bags. I just sort of tucked them in wherever there was space. You can see we have some buds starting to form. Very much looking forward to seeing these. I did a really horrible job of keeping their labels with them. I had originally labeled the 1 gallon sprouting containers, and then when I transplanted them into their grow bags, I sort of lost the tag. So it's just going to be a big fun surprise when they do finally come up. Another great show over here is these guys. These are the Sensation Pink coneflowers, and they are just a little bit shorter than your average coneflower. Very delicate and petite, and I just love the variety of color that you can see between the oldest bloom to the newest bloom. They're just really, really beautiful. This section here, I temporarily have a zinnia in a planter here, but this is where I had my big stand of the Daisy May Shasta daisies, and I cut them all back since they are done blooming. It would greatly benefit me if I had something that bloomed in the early spring, another thing next to it that bloomed later in June, and then something that came in a little bit after that, just to kind of always have something up and blooming. But for now, hide that little accident with a pot of zinnias. Still lots of color on this side here. Some of the secondary supreme cantaloupe coneflowers have come into bloom now. This area, I just sort of tucked in some more vinca to fill in where the daisy mays were. Got the little hottie blooming now, full bloom. And then my lovely stand of Gladiolus. These were supposed to be the Monte Gordo mix. Actually, I don't know if it was a mix. I think it was just supposed to be one straight one. But I did end up getting a mix. I have mostly pink with a yellow center, and then these ones here with orange with a yellow center. And then over here, just a random white one. The storm did knock down some of the bloom stalks, so I just went ahead and cut them down and made a bouquet inside. Over here, a lot of the zinnias are starting to come into bloom. I have the Queen Lime, of course. The betony has all faded, but I do want to point this out. If you cut the bloom stalks like way down, like into the plant, like way down in here, you're really left with this gorgeous ground cover. I've seen other people where they kind of just deadhead them and they clip them up here, and then you're kind of left with that really blunt stem, which doesn't look as good. I would really encourage you to just go in a little bit deeper into the plant and cut the stem all the way back, because that foliage really is so clean. Looks very nice. This is another zinnia, the Senorita zinnia. Look how large that bloom is. And down here I have my Queen of Sweden rose, which was, I think it was attempting to bloom last time I shot this video, and the Japanese beetles just went to town. But she is putting on another growth spurt, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we will actually see these blooms this time. Blue Fortune Hyssop in bloom. This is a very productive daylily. I think it's called Endlessly Coral, which just continues to put up little scapes here and there. Surprised me with another little show. White Swan Echinacea. And then, of course, beautiful Serendipity alliums sprinkled all over the garden. Not much more to report down here. So let's head to the backyard. All right, the impatiens aren't looking horrible. I still wish they were a little bit bigger. I don't know why they're not. Something's just not quite right over here. But I am confident that by the end of the year, it may be all the way in October, these will fill out and be colorful. For now, the Sun King Aurelias are really taking over and looking great. This area, I'm not sure if there's anything really new here. Most of the coneflowers are pretty much in full bloom, just a mix of orange, red, and purple. And some of the dahlias are blooming here. This one here is a golden scepter. Lots of ants on that. And we have patches. Looking beautiful there. There's a marrow star. Oh, this is not a great example. Neither is that. That's okay. They're coming. They're just getting started for the season. I did transplant out the moon frost Canadian hemlock that was here. Some of the needles were starting to turn brown and starting to drop, which I think it was just getting a little too much sun over there. So it is now in the pond garden, and I did pop in a couple more sedums. These are called Rock and Round Bundle of Joy. And I think those stay about a foot tall, maybe 16 inches wide. White flowers in the late summer. Huckster Blue in bloom here. A couple more zinnias getting ready there. Another stand of coneflowers. What a display these are. Love the mixture. I do have like hidden way back in here a pineapple popsicle nyphophia, which really should be out in the front a little more. I didn't realize it stayed so short, but that purple coneflower there specifically is really kind of shrouding it. I think those two should swap next year. Put in a couple more lantana back here just to fill in some gaps. The petunias that I planted in the ground are doing really well. The calibrachoa, it's okay. It's okay. Here's another dahlia here. This one is called Fire and Ice Lemon. Just like a nice bright white with like a highlighter yellow. And I like this one because it has an open center so the bees can get to it. Butterfly bushes growing like weeds, of course. And let's check out the pond garden really quick. Over here, Summer Crush. The original blooms are really just kind of over, but secondary blooms are coming in the back. Beautiful purple one there, another there. Great things to look forward to. This is where the Canadian hemlock is. Now I think it's going to be a little happier here, and in time when it grows I'll just kind of move the astilbes and ferns to different areas, but I don't think I need to worry about that anytime soon. And over here on this side with all the hostas, they're still looking really great. I have cut back most of the bloom stalks at this point, and we're just enjoying them for the foliage. Thankful the deer have not demolished this little salad garden over here. My black truffle lobelia is in bloom right now, and unfortunately we just lost that stalk right there. So I guess I'll have to put that in a vase too. But this is such a beautiful flower. What an intense red. And if you look at one of these little blooms, let me see if I can pick one off here. This little bloom is called cardinal flower, right? I don't know if you can see kind of the lower 3 petals represent the body, and the 2 on the sides are the wings. And then of course we have the head and the beak, I guess. Kind of fun. But the pollinators, or sorry, the hummingbirds specifically really, really love that. Okay, and then back here, not much has changed except the limelights are now really going to town. They're really beautiful and honestly just taking over the show. There's really not a whole lot to look at back here this time of year, unfortunately. These coneflowers have somewhat recovered. I did have to deadhead quite a bit in here because of the rosette mites. That's a good looking bloom. Raspberry beret. I wish this entire stand looked better. Better luck next year. Impatience, taking their time, filling in. A couple more limelights over here. Anything else? Let me think. Oh yeah, okay. The clethra, ruby spice clethra, is blooming now. Not the showiest. Right? Of course, the Japanese beetles just love to ruin everything. But you know, there's something for the pollinators back here. And all of my invincible wee whites have turned green instead of brown, which I'm not hating on, but just an observation. Sorry, the AC just kicked on, so it is kind of loud. Alright, and then that just brings us back out to the front yard. It's starting to get hot again. But that's how the garden is faring this time of year. You know, I think my garden looked better last month for sure. We're just strapping in for the hot summer through July and August for us, and you know, it is technically monarch season for me at least, so my focus kind of shifts over to taking care of caterpillars all the time. At the moment we have 10 that I harvested last week, so honestly we should be getting a bunch more caterpillars any week. It is prime time for the monarchs, and I am very much looking forward to staying cool inside. All right, well, I hope you guys are enjoying your summer. I hope your gardens are looking good still. All right, we'll see you in another video.